Hello again. This is my late Spiral Abyss 4.2 run. I took a break for 2 weeks and missed the first cycle of this abyss. This abyss patch was very tricky. At first, I even thought it was impossible to clear with only 4 stars on my account. The issue is that this Electrocharge team is mandatory for first half, but this leaves second half with very few good options. Worse, the second half bosses have different resistances and requirements, which means my usual teams will struggle against one of the 3 bosses and fail the DPS check. This required me to get creative with the second half team, which is something of a puzzle I enjoyed solving. For the first half though, I went with the old reliable Electrocharge team, also called Taser by the community. This team is excellent against both the mobs of enemies and the Pyrolectors. I tried other team comps and variations, but none matched the speed and safety of this team. Electro may be needed on second half, but because we lack 4-star Hydros that can apply their element fast enough, we have to use Electro here. This team will clear rather slowly, but the other half can easily make up for it. The second half team is an overload team with Bennett, Xiangling, Kuki, and Lynette. This team may look odd, but counters Asamon and Capelia well. Xiangling's Pyronado has a lot of hits and will destroy Asamon's weapons quickly. Kuki's Electro can disable it after. This team utilizes full EM Kuki to deal a good amount of overload damage. Xiangling and Bennett will apply a lot for Pyro, allowing for Kuki to consistently be the overload trigger. Lynette is here with 4-piece Viridescent Veneer to boost Pyro damage further and provide a minor buff to Xiangling's and Bennett's attack. I thought Asamon would be KO'd here, but it still managed to cloak one last time. My brain broke and I stopped when this happened. Fortunately, we had so much time left it wasn't an issue. This entire chamber can be brute forced. On the first half, all enemies have low HP and aren't worth grouping. There isn't much to talk about here, so instead I'll talk about a crucial weapon that this team uses. Sucrose uses Prototype Amber in this comp, allowing her to be a healer on top of all her other perks. This allows us to survive against corrosion on the first chamber. It also makes the comp much easier to play, as you can heal up mistakes. In theory, Beidou and Xingqiu should provide enough protection that we're untouchable, but having Prototype Amber turns this team from a high-risk team to a very comfortable one. If you're the creative team builder, I highly recommend crafting Prototype Amber and experimenting with it. You'll find a lot of mileage out of it. This half has a lot of waves and will waste your time. On average, this half will be slower to clear than the second half. We end with a little more than a minute remaining. But we'll be fine. The Dendro Chicken is a rather frail boss and goes down easily. It's not a huge DPS check, but it does prevent 4 Stars Hyper Bloom team from running over second half. That's why I didn't use Hyper Bloom this run. Xingqiu is needed for Taser, and this half has an anti-Dendro boss. Hyper Bloom might work if we have more Hydro 4 Stars that applies Hydro fast enough and deals good damage. Unfortunately, our remaining Hydro 4 Stars don't fit that requirement. This Abyss really highlights the lack of good Hydro 4 Stars. Hopefully we get more options soon. This Overload team can also easily handle the boss though, and despite some sloppy play, we clear it with little issue. This is the most difficult chamber, with plenty of tanky enemies. Taser deals with the mob extremely well. Now it's time to group the 2 Pyrolectors. This duo will normally be deadly to this count, but Prototype Amber allows us to yield their constant damage. With Xingqiu's protection, Beto's shielding, and Sucrose's healing, we can clear in relative safety and with a decent time. To help counter the Pyro Shields, I gave Xingqiu 240% ER. This is because he can't activate Sacrificial or Favonius Sword's weapon ability while the Pyro Shields are active. I will always highly recommend Taser teams, especially for players looking to make the most of Beto. Capilla may not have a lot of HP, but she makes up for it with high amounts of damage and stacking resistance during climax. But I have my ways to counter both her damage and her resistance stacking. First, her melee damage is deadly, but we have no choice since we are also close-ranged fighters as well. Then it won't be enough to heal back up, and even worse, the Pyro Infusion allows the enemy to melt or swirl us. Kuki counters this damage by providing extra healing while still dealing decent overload damage. Next is Capilla's stacking resistance, which can only be stopped by hitting her with Pneuma. Normally, this team doesn't have Pneuma, but the new weapon, the Sword of Sucrose, gives Bennett Pneuma on normal attack. This weapon was just released on 4.2 and is clutch to break Capilla's resistances. This is why you should never look down on event weapons. You will find use for them. Without her resistances, Capilla becomes a regular boss that's very easy to take down. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. My goal is to reach 100 subs before the year ends.